um, looking at the Jim Crow era, you write about how the development and the heightened interest in jazz as an artistic pursuit posed a serious challenge to one of the central tenets of the American caste system, racial inferiority, right? And you cite a Chicago Defender editorial from 1919 called Jazzing Away Prejudice, which argued that jazz music could serve as an engine for the cause of racial equality. But you also note that this sort of open support for jazz was rare in the Black press at the time. So I was hoping you could tell us more about the significance of Jazzing Away Prejudice and how the Chicago Defender differed from some of the other Black publications in their approach to music commentary in the period. It'd just be great to get a better sense of some of the topics that Black music columnists focused on at the time.
The Black press was so important in not only documenting what was going on in the Black communities, but also in the dissemination of this information so that people around the country could kind of think about themselves as being one nation within a nation. That's one way to think about it. Okay. And to think about the Black press is to think about what was the purpose of many of the people who were the founders of these publications. They often were people who believed in this uplift idea that you had to kind of perform a certain way in public, or else you're not being a credit to the race, right? There was that pressure. And so consequently, many of the people who could become music critics because of their educational background also promoted this idea that Black people participating in Western art music or classical music was a higher calling than participating in jazz and things like that. Now, I can't remember what the that writer was writing about. It could possibly have been the James Reese Europe band, which had just returned from an overseas stint and returned to the United States to great acclaim. So the difference was the artists like who were doing jazz kind of put pressure on what you might call the elites because when the music became so popular, you had to and the people and the public was loving these artists. You had to give it up to them, even if you wanted to only cover what was going on in the classical world, meaning Black people who were playing classical recitals and things like that, and composers, which was primarily what was covered in the Black press. It was only in the maybe the 30s and 40s and certainly in the 50s where jazz, R&B, and rock began to kind of supersede what was going on in the classical world. So again, it's about who's doing the writing,
Mhm.
what are their values. So you just can't really just say the Black press. You have to say, okay, well, who is this critic? Who's this? Who does this byline belong to? What is their background? What agenda are they pushing? What organizations do they belong to? You read some of those commentaries, and they're covering every recital that happened on Sunday afternoon at 3:30, and nobody played a bad note.
Right
you
on.
know, so you have to take it all with a grain of salt.
Right on. Right on.